You might have seen that the EFL Championship playoffs started last weekend. It really wasn't the best watch, both games actually ended 0-0. But you might also know you can move clubs between leagues very easily on FC24. I'm sure you can probably see where I'm going with this, because today in this video we're going to have a look at which EFL Championship playoff team is actually the best one to move to the Premier League so you can grab a head start on EA's FC25. Out of all the playoff teams, Leeds are by far most people's favourites to return straight back to the Premier League. You could even argue they're the form team in the playoffs, but that's only because none of the semi-finalists have actually won more than one of their last 4 games. Leeds finished the year on 90 points, which in other seasons would have actually won the league and would have done this year if it wasn't for Leicester City and Ipswich Town. The Leeds squad is borderline ridiculous when you actually look into it. They have a front 4 that has 81, 84, 85 and 86 potential. So you might not even need to sign a single attacker, but actually have a Premier League title challenging set of forwards by the end of the second year. When you also consider Archie Gray is one of the most wanted young English players in the world, and he also has a similar level of potential, this Leeds squad basically just needs to survive a single season in the Premier League before it has the potential to repeat what Leicester did and win the title. That's not even an exaggeration. If you move Leeds to the Premier League, they'll have a higher rated squad than the likes of West Ham, Brentford, Wolves, Brighton and Forest before you've even finished the second season. So European football could easily return to Ellen Road before Archie Gray even turns 20. Archie Gray is going to be a massive part of your save no matter what you do. His dad, his granddad and his uncle all played for Leeds, and his brother Harry is also part of the academy. He's such a well-rounded box-to-box centre mid or wing-back that will fit into basically any tactic. So it doesn't matter if you want to keep Daniel Farke's pressing or if you want to go back to Marcelo Bielsa's more attacking tactics. Leeds are by far the most likely team in this video to survive in the Premier League, and once you've done that, the save will actually become quite easy quite quickly. If they do manage to win the playoffs, I can definitely see Leeds being one of the best Premier League saves on FC25. Don't get me wrong though, Leeds aren't the only team with high potential in these playoffs. We've seen so many teams build a strong academy in the Championship and then get promoted using players from it. The last time Southampton got promoted, they actually had Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Adam Lallana in their starting 11 for most of the season. This year, they have Will Smallbone and Jack Stevens, who have both spent over a decade at the club, but the majority of Southampton's potential has actually been purchased from other clubs. Adozie, Bazunu, Charles all came through the Manchester City Academy. You might also remember that a former Manchester City player, Romeo Lavia, sold for more than £50 million last summer. The strategy didn't quite work in the Premier League, but after a season in the Championship, some of their potential is actually finally starting to come out. The Southampton defence really doesn't inspire too much confidence in FIFA. Flynn Downs is crucial to the team playing well in real life, but he's not really the best player for a career mode save. The Southampton manager Russell Martin likes to place a crazy amount of emphasis on possession, so the lack of physical ability in the majority of the squad is usually made up by passing, agility and balance stats all being quite high. If you compare Southampton to Leeds, you will have to do a lot more work in the transfer market. Most of the squad is either in the early 20s or in the late 20s, with very few players in the peak of their careers in their mid-20s. I'd actually be tempted to cash in on Gavin Bazunu because despite him having quite high potential for a goalkeeper, you should get a decent amount of money for him, and he wasn't actually the most dominant goalkeeper even before he ruptured his Achilles playing Preston a couple of months ago. With some good signings, Southampton can definitely survive, but you'll be scrapping with the likes of Ipswich, Forest, Everton, Bournemouth and Leicester for every single point in one of the most even relegation battles of all time. Southampton do have some experience being in a relegation fight, but other teams in the playoff do have a little bit more. West Brom is definitely one of them. I don't believe they've ever been one of the most popular saves on any FIFA game, other than probably in FIFA 17 where you could join them in the journey, but West Brom have actually made the playoffs slightly under the radar, and I think they would be very popular next season if they can win the playoffs. It's obvious that West Brom have been in the Championship for 3 seasons, just from looking at their squad. There's no players with over 80 potential, and their highest wage is Jed Wallace on £31,000. This means that West Brom are the best option of the 4 for a total rebuild save. There's not many people that would be skillful or brave enough to keep a Premier League clean sheet with Eric Peters and Kyle Bartley as a combination at centre-back, but players like Cedric Kipre would be able to make the step up to the Premier League, even if he'll never really be more than a backup tier player on FIFA. I'm sure once you've looked at the squad, you can come up with your own shopping list, but I'd say a new centre-back partner for Kipre, a replacement for the ageing Townsend at left-back, a better version of Mowat in defensive midfield, and a new starting striker will all be on that shopping list and going to be key for this rebuild. Get them right, and I think you'll just about survive in the Premier League. If you get them wrong, it could be a disaster and potentially a record-breaking relegation campaign. The Baggies do have new ownership off the pitch, so you could definitely replicate some of their increased funding by adding a few million to the budget before actually starting your save. You'll need to spend every penny that you have on building a new team in the highest rated league on the game. I'd say West Brom are definitely the hardest of the 4 teams to survive with, but the Baggies also have everything you'd want in a career mode save. They have a really nice Scan stadium, they've got rivals in the Premier League, they've got a legacy in the Premier League, and they've got a squad full of players that are on the decline that you can rebuild. They're not the only team in this position though, because on a smaller level, Norwich are actually in quite a similar situation. While Norwich don't have the same squad age issues as West Brom, they also don't quite have the same quality of players as Leeds and Southampton, which kind of makes them a hybrid of the other 3 playoff teams. They have a couple of highly rated players, a couple of players who could easily be replaced by younger stars, and also one of the league's best players in Gabriel Sara. The Norwich squad is fully built for a single style of play, which is free-flowing, fast counter-attacking runs. Their central defensive midfielders aren't the typical second division brutes that just want to win the ball, they're both smaller technical players that can help you do counter-attacks. Don't get me wrong, their wingers aren't pure pace merchants either, they're cultured playmakers, and it might also be quite surprising to see the former Burnley target man Ashley Barnes now playing as an attacking midfielder, but since he dropped back, he offers a lot more to the team's build-up and really does help the team progress. There's threat all over the pitch here, and Norwich would be able to surprise a lot of Premier League teams with both their counter-attacking and also potentially their possession play. You might not have actually kept up with Norwich's squad since they had Todd Cantwell, Max Aarons and Emiliano Buendia, but this squad does have a few players that could reach the level that those players were playing at. Jonathan Rowe is one of them, and in your first season I can definitely see him having the impact that someone like Wilfred Gnonto or Brennan Johnson had in their first top flight seasons. A few good games and he'll soar towards his potential and also rapidly increase in value. The team's defence will also need a full rebuild, but even with their low ratings, the way the attack is specialised in one certain style will still produce goals in the Premier League. Of course, one of the teams that you'll need to beat to survive is your rivals Ipswich Town, who themselves will be facing a summer of total rebuild. Of the 4 teams we've talked about, I'd say Norwich is probably most likely to finish 20th out of 20, but would also play some pretty decent football. It's hard to compare Leeds and Southampton to Norwich and West Brom, but every team in the playoffs this year has at least one aspect that leads them to being a really fun career mode save, either on FC24 or on FC25. Definitely give one of these a go if you're about to start a new save, but of course, one of these teams will be in the Premier League next year, waiting for you to save them on FC25. Let me know which team you're most excited to use in the comments below, and why not check out one of the playlists on screen where I actually play career mode rather than just talking about it. Hopefully you have a great day, I'll see you soon, cheers and goodbye.